Everyone is trying to quit Nvidia. Nobody has managed it. In February, Meta signed a gigawatt-scale deal with AMD. 7 days earlier, it signed with Nvidia. Estimates of Nvidia's share disagree. All of them point down. Its data center revenue points the other way, $75 billion in a quarter. The lock was never the chip. There are 3 of them, and the strongest one is bolted into the walls of the building. Start with what the buyers are actually doing. In 2025, OpenAI agreed to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD accelerators. In February 2026, Meta did the same. Up to 6 gigawatts of Instinct, the first gigawatt landing in the second half of this year, aimed at inference. AMD attached a warrant to that deal, up to 160 million of its own shares, vesting as the hardware ships. These are not purchase orders. They are commitments measured in years and gigawatts. The largest buyers are designing their own accelerators as well. On paper, every serious buyer now has a second source. Now look at the company they are all diversifying away from. Data center revenue, up 92% from a year earlier, up 21% from the previous quarter. Gross margin, 74.9%. Net income, $58.3 billion in 3 months. AMD is not standing still either. Its data center business more than doubled from a year earlier. The whole company reached $11.5 billion in the quarter, up 50%. Meta's own capital budget for this year runs $115 to $135 billion. So the money is there, the alternative is real, and the incumbent is growing faster than both. 2 things that should not fit together, fitting together. Everything after this is why. Lock 1 is the software, and it is the one everybody names first. Nvidia counts about 6 million developers on CUDA. That is its own figure, given at GTC 2026. Other counts land lower, depending on what you call a developer. The size is not really the point. The shape is. CUDA is not a wall you can walk around. It is a gravity well. Everything built inside it rolls back toward the center. Underneath the code sit the libraries, cuDNN for the layers, NCCL for the collectives, TensorRT for the serving. Above the code sit the kernels, a team hand-tuned for one memory hierarchy. Each of those pieces has an equivalent on the other side. Not one of them is a drop-in replacement. Around all of it sits the boring layer. Build systems, containers, profilers, the tests that only pass on one vendor's driver. And the hiring. Every engineer on the team was hired into this dialect. Every one of those is a small decision made years ago and never revisited. So the port is not a program, the port is an organization. Ask the teams who have tried, and nobody answers in weeks, they answer in months. There is no published figure for it. Anyone quoting one is guessing. A gravity well does not stop you leaving. It taxes every meter of the climb. The tax is paid in the same currency every time. Engineer months that produce no new capability. You finish the migration and you have what you had before, running somewhere else. Software is the lock everyone expects. It is also the weakest of the 3. Lock 2 does not live in the software at all. It lives in the wiring. A modern training cluster is not a collection of chips. It is one machine spread across a building. The parts of that machine have to talk to each other faster than any single part can work. Inside a rack, that traffic runs over NVLink. Between racks, it runs over InfiniBand, or over Nvidia's own Ethernet fabric, Spectrum X. And the language they speak is NCCL, the library that decides how a hall of accelerators shares a result. Swap the chip and you keep the problem. The chips still have to agree with each other. Here is the number that reframes the whole argument. In its most recent quarter, Nvidia's networking business alone brought in $14.8 billion, up 199% from a year earlier. AMD's entire data center business, in its own most recent quarter, brought in $6.7 billion.
The quarters do not line up. Nvidia's ended in April, AMD's in June. This is a comparison of scale, not a race result. Nvidia sells more networking than its closest rival sells accelerators, more than twice as much. Cables are the part of the machine nobody puts on a slide. They are also the part that is already installed and paid for and carrying traffic. A fabric is poured into a building once. Trays, lengths, transceivers, and the topology of which row talks to which row. You can buy someone else's accelerator next quarter. The nervous system around it was decided when the hall was built. The physics here is the same physics that pushed copper aside for light. Distance costs signal, and the distances keep growing. Every generation makes the links shorter and the machine bigger, which is the same sentence read twice. So the second lock is heavier than the first. Software you rewrite, wiring you re-pour. And it arrives inside a deal that looked like it was only about chips. Lock 3 is time. Nvidia now ships a new accelerator generation every year. Blackwell is in the field. Rubin is next, and it ships this year. The cadence is the product. Consider what an annual cadence does to a migration measured in months. You start porting against the generation on the floor. By the time the kernels are stable, the reference platform has moved. Not because anyone timed it against you, because that is the release schedule. So the team that leaves is always arriving where the market was, not where it is. This is the part that compounds. The first 2 locks cost you once. The third one charges rent. It also explains the shape of the deals we started with. A buyer does not choose between vendors. A buyer chooses how much of next year to spend catching up. Which is why the second source shows up in inference first, where the software surface is smaller and the fabric matters less. The alternative enters through the easiest door in the building. Training is the hard door, and it is the one the fabric guards. Each lock alone is survivable. Stacked, they are not a wall, they are a slope. Software makes leaving expensive. Wiring makes leaving physical. Cadence makes leaving late. None of this requires anyone to behave badly. It is what an ecosystem does when every layer is sold together. Go back to February. On the 17th, Meta commits to millions of Nvidia GPUs, with Nvidia's networking and Nvidia's processors alongside them. On the 24th, 7 days later, it commits to 6 gigawatts of AMD. Both are real. Both were signed by people who read balance sheets for a living. That is not a company leaving. That is a company buying a second source while renewing the first. Diversification is not an exit. It is insurance, and the premium is paid in engineer months. The exit exists. It just costs more every year you wait. Next time, the part nobody can order in time. The transformers that stand between a signed contract and a powered building, and the queue you join to get one.